Good afternoon. My name's Aaron McGlynn. I'm coming to you live here, I guess, through Zoom from Cabinet Works in Wellman, Iowa. For anybody that doesn't know where Wellman is, we're about 20 miles south, kind of a little bit to the west of Iowa City, just straight west of Kelowna. Small little town. Not a whole lot of big business here, but it's worked for us. So to tell you a little bit about myself, I was born in Creston, Iowa, which is southwest Iowa. And at about 4, I moved to a town, Fort Dodge, which is kind of north central Iowa, north of Des Moines, larger town, about 30,000 people, so quite a bit different from the area that I'm in now. But graduated there in 1993, ended up doing 2 years of junior college at Iowa Central, which is honestly pretty similar to Kirkwood, just a little bit of a smaller scale. Took some general ed classes there. Hindsight being 2020, I wish I would have taken, they've got a really good carpentry program there, which is actually the field I've kind of fallen into. So had I known that then, I probably would have pursued that, but took some gen ed classes and ended up moving to Iowa City. Got to Iowa City in about 1995. Didn't know what I wanted to do. Started working at a lumber yard. Worked at a lumber yard, kind of means to an end. I started off with a pretty just kind of grunt position, knowing that I didn't want to be at the bottom of the pay scale any longer than I had to. I tried to work hard and fast and make my bosses realize that maybe I had a little bit of potential. So worked my way up and got into doing some of the sales, got into some management roles there, ended up doing some estimating, and eventually ended up in an outside sales department. So that was something growing up I never ever thought I would be in. I was always pretty shy and a little bit timid, and in sales, you've got to learn to talk to people. So I think I got decent at it, had a pretty good rapport with people, and worked that job for about 5 years, which ended up leading me to Cabinet Works. So kind of a funny story there. The way I got to Cabinet Works was it was actually a client of mine at the lumber yard. He was a builder at the time and had owned this cabinet shop for just a few years, and I think maybe saw a little bit of potential in me and said, Aaron, I'd like you to come run this business for me and, see what we can do. And this went on for about 2 years, and I just kept saying no. And long story short, finally twisted my arm long enough, and I've been here since 2007. And to be honest, really haven't regretted any of it. So a little bit about Cabinet Works. We're a full service custom cabinet shop. We build cabinets, furniture. We do some trim. We do barn doors, custom millwork, really about anything anybody can think of. I think most people, when they think of cabinets, they think of going to a large big box store and just ordering them. And, they show up in a box and you put them together. What we do is a little bit different from that. We build everything from scratch. We build everything by hand. And I've got some slides here in a little bit I'll show you. But this cabinet shop started in about 1960 with a gentleman by the name of George Esch. He was a builder. And at that point in time, a lot of those builders built their cabinets by themselves. So he ran the shop for 40, 50 years and ended up selling it to who it'd be my boss's dad back in about 2001. He ran it for 5, 6 years. And then my boss, Chad Mellinger, ended up buying the business from his dad. Like I said, hired me. And really, we kind of changed how we were doing things. I came in, we went from about a 3,000 square foot shop to about a 7,000 square foot shop, put in a showroom and just started doing things a little bit different. And really went from about 3 employees all the way up to, at some point in time, 9 and 10. So really kind of changed the way we worked. My boss, he also is a custom home builder. So with the cabinet shop, I get in on some of the custom home building. So kind of a neat thing there. And I'll talk about it later, but really no day is ever the same. I always tell people, they ask me what I do, and I say I'm a jack of all trades, master of none, which means I've got to really be quick on my feet, be able to switch gears pretty quickly and adapt to either different work conditions or different projects, multitask. So it's pretty interesting. It's a hands-on job. I don't really sit in front of a computer all day, but there are times I do have to do that. Sometimes I'm out driving around estimating, looking at jobs, talking to customers. So I'll get into that just a little bit more. A few of my other, things that I'm involved in, and I would tell anybody if you're in high school to try and join some kind of extracurricular club organization. I've been a pretty strong member with the Home Builders Association, both locally and in a statewide organization. That's been very good for me. It's been good for networking, and it has really opened a lot of doors for me, both personally and professionally. The other thing that I just really fell into also is teaching. At Kirkwood, I teach a class in the Washington Regional Center as an adjunct called ACE, which is Architecture, Construction, Engineering. And if you would ask me back in high school in 1993 if I would have ever been teaching, I would have just laughed at it. But something that I've really enjoyed, and it's been very good for me. So I'll talk quickly about Cabin Works, just typical day. We've got about 4 employees right now. You know, I get here in the morning, we open up the shop, and my day can be anywhere from drawing, cabinet drawings for the other employees. It can be actually building the things. It can be, like I mentioned before, out estimating, talking to people. We work with a designer, which is great. She's kind of a go-between sometimes between myself and our customers. But really, anything that needs to be done in the small business, I've been able to learn how to do. And being a small business, I guess I would say you need to learn how to do just a little bit of everything, because there may not be that other person there that would normally do that job someday. Maybe they call in sick, and you've got to be able to switch gears pretty quickly to be able to pull your weight and do another part of the job. So I'm going to switch over to a slideshow here and really kind of pretend as if you were here and walk through our shop. So we'll go through some slides. We'll talk about some different projects, and then I'll recap with a few other notes. So outside of our building, like I said, Wellman, Iowa, we always kind of joke, we're not real fancy down here, but we get the job done. Next slide, if you were to walk in our front door, we've got a small showroom and office. We've got a nice little selection center. You can see we've got just different door samples, some of the paint style stain samples that we would offer in a full custom kitchen. We've got countertop selections. The particular ones right here are quartz. That's been pretty popular over the years. I did throw this slide in there to show you that it's not all just working on a table saw or a miter saw. I do use a computer. We've got an old phone back here, calculator. We do a lot of things by hand. A lot of the cabinet companies anymore, there's a lot of technology involved with CAD programs and computer renderings. We use computer renderings, but a lot of what we do, we still just do with pencil and paper, and we make templates, and we use math and do it that way. So we're a little bit old-fashioned in that aspect, but that's actually kind of the part that I enjoy about it. We do a lot of kind of one-of-a-kind pieces that we've kicked around getting some more automated machines, but to be honest, we do so many one-of-a-kind pieces, it still makes us more money, just kind of doing it the old-fashioned way. So a quick snapshot of our shop. You can actually see there's wood rack over here that I'm sitting right in front of right now, but our lumber comes in. We order our lumber from a supplier over in Des Moines. We get raw lumber. We don't go to a Menards or Lowe's or a Home Depot to buy our plywoods. We get it through a supplier, and it comes in a little bit thicker and maybe not so straight as what you would see there. And then we bring it over to our saws, and we start to cut it and mill it and shape it. So next slide here would be some of the sheets of plywood that we use. Next slide here, and you can see we've just got, pretty tough to tell, but we build our cabinets out of a variety of different woods. We've got oak, white oak, red oak, ash, maple, poplar, so just some of the different varieties. Typically we order about once a week. I don't stock a whole lot because we're continually working on a lot of different projects. One thing I learned a long time ago is you don't want to let a lot of your products sit too long. You want to you keep your turns high, which means you're ordering kind of as needed. Get on over to, this is a miter saw. That'd be something we'd be using every day. That's probably the first step in starting to cut some of our boards down and machine them to a final dimension. A planer is a machine that will take a board down to thickness. So that's also one of the first machines we use. Got a table saw here. We've got kind of a neat attachment on it right there. That's called a power feed. I've been here about 12 years, and we've never had an accident in here that required more than about 2 or 3 stitches. So we really preach safety, and this power feed attachment on this saw is something that really keeps us safe and keep our hands and fingers back from the machine. Some of the equipment we have is pretty old too, 25, 30 years old, but it still runs and it really does the job for us. So even though it's old, we can still be safe with it if we use it correctly. Another example of a big table saw that we use to cut some of our panels down. This machine, I think, was made in about 1986. It was kind of funny. Every once in a while, we have to pull the manual out for it to check apart, and the manual is actually written on a typewriter. And for whoever's watching this, you guys might be too young to even know what a typewriter is, but wasn't even produced on a computer, so kind of funny. It's called a time saver, though, in a large sander. You can put about a 3-foot wide board through there, and it'll sand it down to a desired thickness. Clamps, we kind of just a funny picture I thought I'd throw in there. We use a lot of clamps. We'll have to sometimes you can't get the right size board that you need, so you actually have to make that board by gluing up 2 or 3 other boards. Little picture here of some cabinets we built that are just in our shop, but you can see in here we've got all these little drawers, just different fasteners and sandpapers and glues. We really try and keep things organized. That's one of my big things with working here. We've got 3 to 4 guys in the shop, and I really try and instill in them to keep things organized, because we can't be spending a bunch of time looking around for something that's maybe missing because somebody didn't put it back in the right spot. I'm kind of taking you from the front of the shop to the back of the shop. This would be some of our spray room chemicals, paints, stains. We've got a pretty good flow with the shop. The first slide started at the front of the shop, so as we build something, we're working back, so we're not jumping around, so we're not wasting a bunch of time, moving things from the front of the shop to the back of the shop, or vice versa. So some of our paints and stains that we use, here's a shot of our other side. We get that from several different suppliers, and to be honest, we've gotten good at it in the last couple of years, and a lot of times we just mix our own to make our own color, so that's kind of cool. Just in the last day or two, we're building a large cabinet for a new fire station, and it's a display case, and they wanted the cabinet to be fire engine red. So we actually were able to make bright red paint, which is really, like I said, kind of a neat thing, because you won't be able to do that all the time. Move on to the next slide. Here's some of our spray equipment that we use. We've got a dedicated room that we actually spray our chemicals on, our stains, our paints, our top coats. And this, we're getting to the back of the shop. We've got some drying racks here, and you can see there's a lot of little parts and pieces on there. That's all ready for assembly. Here's a couple specialty machines we use. This is a machine that will punch our hinges into the door, so we don't have to drill those by hand. And I'll show you a machine here in a minute that we used to have to use in place of this bright orange machine. This is called a dovetail machine. If you're making drawer boxes, it's kind of a neat little joint. If you ever look at any woodworking sites, you'll learn what a dovetail is. This is another machine that's been a big time saver for us. You can see there's a series of drill bits. There's 13 of them to be exact. You can put a piece of plywood underneath there, pull a lever, and it'll drill 13 holes at one time for your shelf holes in an upper cabinet. So we used to have a guy that would have to do all that by hand with just a regular drill. And one of the days I said, hey, let's upgrade. Saves us a ton of time in that machine, and honestly, it's probably paid for itself in the time savings we see by it. When I talked about drilling the hole for the hinges, this is the machine we used to have. I bet this thing was probably made back in 1950. You can actually just kind of see by the label how old that looks, but still works, and we use it every once in a while. I'm going to get on now to some of our finished projects. Like I said, we do use some design software for our kitchen cabinet renderings, but a lot of what we get are real simple drawings. This was actually a set of drawings from our designer, custom home up near Solon, Iowa. They wanted a set of barn doors. They wanted them painted black. So we started off with a pretty, what I'd say, simple sketch, and then took some dimensions off it and ended up with this. So you can see that, what I would call just kind of a napkin drawing, you can go back to a pretty cool finished product. A lot of that is actually being able to kind of visualize that in your head and talk to the people and know what they want. Here's another one. I'm sorry the slide came in sideways, but this is a fireplace surround. You can see it's got some stone. There's a mantle, some cabinets either side, and there's actually some steel right up here in the middle of the cabinet, or the fireplace, excuse me. This is a finished fireplace. You can see from, again, just a simple rendering that maybe the customer provided or a designer provided. We can come up with that and put that together. Here's a custom table we made for a customer. They had a specific size and color that they wanted, so we made a table for them, so getting into a little furniture type piece there. This was kind of a neat project, pretty large house out in Williamsburg, Iowa. These are actually the vanities in the master bathroom. They wanted them to be the same, yet a little bit different. So you can see we've got a his and hers. The hers, she wanted some little scallops underneath, so we put that in, but we made, you know, basically these new cabinets kind of look old with some feet. I will tell you a story. The plumbers didn't like us on this one very well because they had a hard time getting their plumbing put in there. So little bit of a funny story, but we made it work. This was kind of a neat project. Same house, they wanted a whiskey barrel, so we ordered a whiskey barrel online and cut a sink into there and used a whiskey barrel as a vanity. This was a project we did about 1.5 years ago. The customers, they've got 2 dogs. This is Tucker and this is Milo. And one of the biggest things they wanted in their house was this custom dog kennel for their 2 dogs. So it turned out well. And again, we started from a simple sketch, kind of designed it and incorporated it right into the house. It's actually part of the laundry room, the same color cabinets as everything else, and gave the dogs a great home. This was the same project out in Williamsburg. They've got a formal dining room, to be honest, kind of a fancy house, and a lot of kids, and they wanted a serving cart that they could run back and forth from the kitchen to the dining room to clean the dishes off the table. I don't think it got used that way. I think it ended up more for decoration than anything, but that was kind of fun. We ended up making it match the kitchen cabinets. Here's another sketch we got from the designer that we work with. Kind of, they called it a dry bar. You can see it's got some doors here with arches, some tiles, some upper cabinets, and ended up making something that looked like that out of. So again, what we can do with a fairly simple drawing and some really good notes, we can make look beautiful. Same house, they wanted a library. One thing I'm going to talk about here quickly in a minute is some of the classes you might want to take as you're in school and thinking about what you want to do for in your future. Math, you know, we use a fair amount of math in our job. Not tough math, it's fairly simple math, but you know, geometry comes into play. If you look at this cabinet, it actually goes back into a corner, and you can kind of see that it dives into the corner. And those were actually pretty tricky. That was a series of, I think, 7 or 8 different cabinets, and we had to get some kind of tricky angles on there and make everything fit. And then they've got a ladder that rolls. We had to make sure that we got the math right on all that to make sure that it all worked out in the end. Here's a house up near Solon we just finished up. Kind of neat barn door over here. Again, that was something that the customer came to us, said, I've got this drawing, I wanted a certain color and style, and we were able to make that way. This picture I wanted to show you. The picture really doesn't do this kitchen justice at all. This island is 16 feet long, so average size car is probably 16 to 18 feet. That island is as long as a car. And if you look at this hood here, if you look at the refrigerator, this wood hood is actually taller than that refrigerator. That wood hood was over 8 feet tall, which is really pretty uncommon. So taller than the sheet of plywood. That was pretty interesting to build. We had to put curves in it. So again, there was a little bit of thinking, some creativity in that with getting that put together, and really a neat project when it was all done. Another project out in Williamsburg. Same arch doors as we saw before. Neat tile backsplash. We did some floating shelves here, and that was a kind of inspiration picture out of a magazine they wanted to mimic, so we had to figure out how to put those together. And this is my last slide. This could be you, you know, if you decide to do some kind of internship or job shadow. This was a student we had here, you know, 2-3 months, wants to go into the building trades, really enjoyed his time here. He'll probably end up doing some kind of construction, but really ended up liking working here in our cabinet shop. It was something that rough carpentry, rough framing is a little bit different than the measurements and things we use. We've got to be a little more precise with how we do things. So he really thought that it was a good mix to learn both ends of that. So I'm going to go back here and stop sharing my screen, and then I've got a couple things here I want to finish up with. I want to talk a little bit about our clients. You saw in these pictures some pretty neat houses, some things that actually cost some money. I'd say most of our clients are, you know, the 30 to 50 range. Some of what we do are remodels. Some of what we do is new construction. I think both have pros and cons. But you know, the biggest thing we always learn from our project is communication. And I'll talk about that in a minute. Again, communication's huge. You've got to be able to talk to your people. You got to be able to problem solve. Sometimes things don't always go right. And, you know, the other thing that really ends up being a cool thing, actually two cool things at the end, I think, is you really get to know these people. Most of the people that we work with were friends at the end. You get to be a pretty big part of their life, maybe designing something that they've been dreaming about for, you know, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, and then to have it become reality. And they've got this new, you know, dream kitchen or dream home that they've been thinking about. It's really a neat feeling, and an even neater feeling sometimes for me to say, hey, you know, I had a part of that and I built that, and that's going to be around for years to come. So a little bit about our clients. I want to talk just a little bit about schooling. You know, if you're in school right now, and to revert back to my days, I graduated in 1993. I took some drafting classes. They didn't have the computer classes like you guys have now, the AutoCADs and the Google SketchUps, Revit. You know, everything I learned was by hand. So take some of those classes, you know, experience some of that. The other thing, try and, you know, get yourself involved in some clubs, get yourself involved in activities. The more people you meet, the better off you are. When I told you at the beginning of this how I got this job, it was really just by knowing somebody. You know, you always hear the saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And there's a lot of truth to that. I wouldn't be teaching at Kirkwood right now had I not met some people. That was through the Home Builders Association. That was you know, an activity, kind of an extracurricular type organization that I got myself involved in. But again, reach out to people, network, get to know people. You know, a few other things I want to talk about. Some of the skills you would need, you know, to work in our job, or really any job. If you've ever heard the term soft skills, those are huge right now. They're important. And I don't think sometimes those are being taught well enough. But learn how to communicate. I just talked about that. You want to learn to communicate by email, not always just a text or a Snapchat. You really need to communicate by email, back and forth with people. You know, right now we're doing Zoom. This is technology that's been around for a long time, but you know, people are starting to use more often, and it's great technology. Problem solving. I have to problem solve every day of my life. Sometimes, you know, somebody gives you something that looks really good on paper as far as size, but it doesn't actually work. So you've got to problem solve and brainstorm on how to make that work for maybe a specific spot. Sometimes in our home construction, you've got, you know, something that you ordered that everything kind of hinges on getting that in at a certain time and snowballs if it's not there. So you've got to problem solve on maybe how to fix a situation like that. Leadership, that's a huge soft skill. I always, the Kirkwood class I teach, I always ask the kids the very first day, I separate them into groups, and I always ask if they're a leader or a follower. And there's really no right or wrong answer with that. Sometimes people can be great leaders, and sometimes people can be great followers, and sometimes you can do a little bit of both. But, you know, sometimes you need to lead, and when it's time to lead, you need to do that. Teamwork's huge in our industry. Like I say, we work here with 3 or 4 people daily, but you get out into a large job site, you may be working with 10 people, and everybody's really got to be on the same page. You've got to work together, and that's where that communication comes back into play. Your work ethic, you know, that's a big thing anymore. Actually the student in the picture one day, he came in and it was kind of a joke. I said, be here at 8 o'clock, and he was here at 7:50. And I said, well, you're early. And he said, no, I'm on time. He says 10 minutes early is on time. That always stuck with me. That was coming from a 16-year-old kid. I thought, man, his parents did a good job, you know, raising him and teaching him, on my opinion, good work ethic. 10 minutes is on time. And adaptability would be the last one I want to talk about. I just talked about that a little bit. Got to be able to change with the times. Everything anymore is instant. We've got, you know, instant email, instant delivery, instant phone. Everything's instant. So you've got to really be able to react and, you know, really change quickly if you need to. So I think, you know, that's about it for what I want to talk about. I've been involved with Workplace Learning Connection for several years. We've had a lot of great internships through the years. I'm a strong advocate of doing whatever kind of internship you want. Maybe it's something you think you're going to like and you end up hating it, but just get yourself out there, put yourself out there, and try something. So in closing, I would say, and I said this to the last day of my class with my Kirkwood kids, I said, work hard, do your best, have fun while you're working, and that's all anybody will ever ask of you. So with that, if anybody's ever interested, contact me. Aaron McGlynn, Cabinet Works, Wellman, Iowa. Thanks.